Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Calls intensify for Justice Minister to clarify steps for permanent appointment of a DPP. Sections of Spanish Town St. Catherine remain tense despite police intervention. And later in sports, no winners in JPL first leg quarter-final matches. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pulla and here are the details. In-person classes resumed today at several schools in and around Spanish Town in St. Catherine. However, dozens of students did not show up for classes. The institutions reverted to online classes Monday amid a flare-up of violence following the fatal shooting of 44-year-old Sheldon Walters, otherwise called Termite. Amoy Harriet reports.
The police have intensified their presence in Spanish Town over the last few days, but residents are still on edge.
Boy, due to how Spanish Town very violent right now, me no plan to leave my yard because me no want a streak that catch me or no stone.
Schools were given the go-ahead to resume face-to-face classes Tuesday morning, but TVJ News understands that several classrooms were scanty as students stayed away. The situation at Spanish Town Primary is dire.
All teachers are here and all ancillary workers. However, we have about 50% of the student population. And I know that for the afternoon shift, we might pretty much have less than 50%.
His staff became more terrified after learning that a student had a violent encounter on his way to school.
Because just a few minutes ago, one of my teachers reported that a student came breathless this morning, and his account was that there was a shooting when he was coming to school.
The principal says he will be monitoring the situation throughout the afternoon to determine if classes should be dismissed early.
If there are no account of violence in and around the area, because since I came in this morning, I've been in touch with the police. If there are no accounts of anything in the area, we are going to try to go up until 4:45, but any disturbances, I have no choice but to dismiss the students early and their staff.
In contrast, however, there was a 75% turnout at Jose Marti Technical High, while Macaulay Primary recorded full attendance. Amoy Harriet, TVJ News.
Human rights lobby group Jamaicans for Justice, JFJ, is this afternoon calling on Justice Minister Delroy Chuck to give clarity on the next steps surrounding the permanent appointment of the Director of Public Prosecutions. On Monday, the government announced Claudette Thompson as the Acting Director of Public Prosecutions following a court ruling on Friday. But speaking on Power 106 Morning Agenda Tuesday, JFJ's Executive Director, Mikhail Jackson, says Mr. Chuck needs to address the issue in Parliament today.
I don't think the acting position was ever envisioned to be utilized in this particular way, and I think it's a dangerous precedent that the government is setting by exercising what it has been exercising. And again, it's another demonstration of bad governance. So I think Minister Chuck, I hope he will have the floor in that regard, and he will update the public and clarify that letter that also led to confusion and continues to confuse us as to the status of the office and a permanent replacement.
And with the resumption of Parliament today, JFJ is also calling for House Speaker Juliet Holness to publicly withdraw a letter of reprimand to former clerk to the Houses of Parliament, Valerie Curtis. Ms. Curtis's retirement took effect on April 6, but was overshadowed by a reprimand letter from Mrs. Holness over her handling of reports from the Auditor General's Department.
We believe that it was an unfortunate one, and certainly based on the powers of the House Speaker, I don't think it was a lawful one to have been issued in the first place. If you're talking about the tabling of the Integrity Commission's report, I think it's important that the public is made aware of the contents of those reports, because we can't be using the buzzwords of transparency and accountability and anti-corruption framework, but we're not heeding to the principles of what exactly those mean. We can't have those reports languishing with the Oversight Committee, and I think it's just in the interest of the public and transparency to ensure that we are made aware of the content. So.
Leader of opposition business in the Senate, Peter Bunting, is reacting to the country's having an acting director of public prosecutions. While expressing support for the appointment, Mr. Bunting still wants the Justice Minister and the Attorney General to resign. He was speaking on Beyond the Headlines on Monday.
Peter Bunting was one of the claimants in the matter that was brought before the Supreme Court for Paula Llewellyn not to remain in office as Director of Public Prosecutions. The Supreme Court on Friday handed down the ruling, and the country has since gotten an acting DPP, Claudette Thompson. Mr. Bunting, who is also the leader of opposition business in the Senate, says he's satisfied with recent developments.
Happily, wiser heads seem to have prevailed. Over the weekend, the Prime Minister consulted the Leader of the Opposition, and the Leader of the Opposition facilitated a quick consultation and an appointment of a new Public Service Commission, which in turn facilitated the appointment of an acting DPP today. So we've come through a very untidy process, that has lasted almost a year, but I think we're at the point now where hopefully we're seeing our way through.
The government indicated that it intends to appeal the case, but Mr. Bunting doesn't think there is a high probability of a win.
The former DPP had already been the longest serving DPP. She had had an extension beyond 3 years beyond retirement. I really don't understand what is the desperation to keep her in office by way of this appeal now, that just based on history, by the time that is heard, etc., she would again be close to the 65 retirement age. And as the judgment has said, they're even if they won on that point, I don't see it being, meaningful.
Meanwhile, despite the latest developments, Mr. Bunting is still calling for the resignation of Justice Minister Delroy Chuck and the Attorney General, Dr. Derek McCoy.
They seem to have really been the only attorneys, or in a very tiny minority, who interpreted the judgment that way. It was very clear to you and to 99+% of all other attorneys who read the judgment. So it would suggest that, either a high level of incompetence or that there were purely political motivations behind their reasoning.
Raquel Porto, TVJ News.
Some residents in St. Thomas are upset with their local authorities about delayed river training for the Negro River, which threatens the community whenever it rains. They're even more fearful now with the hurricane season fast approaching. Details from Carrie Simpson.
It's been 5 months since heavy rains damaged several rural communities in St. Thomas, including Danver Spen. Residents say following last year's tour by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, promises were made for corrective measures to be taken, but nothing has been forthcoming. Dean Jones is councillor for the Trinityville Division in Western St. Thomas.
The representation was made with the National Work Agency. National Work Agency doing nothing about it. The Member of Parliament makes several representations to E.G. Hunter. E.G. Hunter and the National Work Agency is sabotaging the people of Danver Spen, is suffering the people of Danver Spen.
He says he personally made calls to the National Works Agency, but no remedial work has started. The residents recall the damage from the last heavy rains.
I'm one of the person who damaged by the water. Who them have to get the rope to get cross me and my son, my neighbor, them have to push out 100% to get to cross. And me asking the Prime Minister, please, we need help.
My house had flooded out. I lost a lot of my furniture. A lot of people. If that rain come continually, people have died.
Mr. Jones is demanding that the matter be addressed.
Deal with the resident of Danver Spen. The time is now, and we're not going to wait until the rainy season and things happen again. And then you hear, everybody here again get washed out. That don't make no sense.
Communications manager at the National Works Agency, Stephen Shaw, says the agency has sent a technical team to do an assessment of the river, and they are now awaiting funding.
In this particular situation, we need to do a significant bit of work. You're talking about recreating the embankment, then you have to protect that embankment from erosion, and those things, they cost quite a bit. And so it is not like the NAA is sitting on money and can, go out and spend. Whatever we do has to be managed, has to be in the context of a program that is financed through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Carrie Simpson, TVJ News.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. 7 high schools in St. James have been targeted to benefit from a drone technology program. Training for the pilot is set for the new academic year in September. The program is aimed at preparing students to transition for life after high school. It's been spearheaded by the Jamaica Constabulary Force in partnership with several other stakeholders.
This program is one that I believe will change the landscape of not just the schools in St. James, but across the entire country.
Principal at Cornwall College, Michael Ellis, says he's looking forward to the growth for students coming out of the program.
There are other benefits for our boys, ranging from just providing structure to their school life, but it will open up more opportunities, more doors for a career in drone technology. Law enforcement, of course, among other things.
It's kind of interests me a little bit to see what kind of fields are open with this skill and stuff. So I was thinking about joining the JDF or JCF.
I am excited for the experience and I really like to know more about drones.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
Consumers paid an average 3.7% more for apparel between March 2023 and March 2024. These price movements were influenced by supply chain movements and overall increases in manufacturing prices. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin says for the month of March alone, prices of items in the group clothing and footwear moved upwards by 0.2%. The cost of clothing and footwear each increased by an average 0.2%. Further afield, the U.S. Senate is taking up a bill that bans TikTok today. A TikTok executive is vowing legal action if the U.S. bans the social media platform as expected. The bill would give its Chinese parent company ByteDance 270 days to sell the app. Otherwise, it would keep TikTok out of U.S. app stores. The Senate is expected to pass the legislation as early as tomorrow. Legal experts say TikTok could argue in court that a ban would hurt free speech. They say an intent to protect national security might not matter if the outcome affects First Amendment rights. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Carrie Simpson.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Dominica's High Court has overturned a ban on consensual same-sex relations in the Caribbean island. The court ruled that parts of the law that criminalized same-sex activity were unconstitutional. Same-sex activity is still illegal in 5 other Caribbean nations, including Jamaica. On the international scene, the White House says it is considering to provide temporary legal status and work permits to immigrants who are in the United States legally but are married to American citizens. The decision is being seen as a move that could energize some Democrats ahead of the November elections. This as Democratic lawmakers and advocacy groups have pressured U.S. President Joe Biden to take steps to protect immigrants. And 10 people are dead after 2 Navy helicopters collided mid-air during a rehearsal for a military parade in the Malaysian town of Lumat. One of the aircraft clipped the rotor of the other before the 2 crashed into the ground. Malaysia's Prime Minister took to social media to express his condolences as he said the nation mourns the tragedy. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Amoy Harriet.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jermaine Brown.